We haven't had a UFC event in a couple of weeks after UFC 227, but the UFC will be returning on August 25th for UFC Fight Night Gaethje vs Vick. Now, this isn't a gigantic event. It's not like Justin Gaethje and James Vick are two gigantic stars, but this is a fight with a lot of potential and huge implications to the lightweight division. So in this video, I want to take a look at 5 things that you should know about this fight going into it on August 25th. Now let's get right into it, and the first thing you have to know about this fight going into it is Justin Gaethje's past incredible fights. That's why you should be excited for this main event, because you know you are getting a barn burner with Justin Gaethje in the main event. And James Vick is no slouch either, but it's always been the Justin Gaethje show. If you know Justin Gaethje is going to be in a fight, you know it's going to be really, really good. Just to go back through some of his fights, he had a fight with Michael Johnson last year in 2017 over International Fight Week, and that was arguably the fight of the year. And then his UFC 218 fight with Eddie Alvarez, I wouldn't say that was quite as good as the Michael Johnson fight, but that was probably the second best fight of the year. It was among the top 5. I would say that Michael Johnson fight was literally the best, and then that Eddie Alvarez fight was number 3 or number 4. I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that. And then, of course, just earlier this year, he had an exceptional fight with Dustin Poirier, a back and forth fight. Unfortunately, in the latter 2 fights, the one against Eddie Alvarez and the one against Dustin Poirier, he did come out in the losing end, and unfortunately, he got stopped in both fights. So you have to wonder how much damage he is taking in these fights, because that could be a big factor going into it. Still, because it's Justin Gaethje, because it's a 5-round main event, you know he's gonna want to deliver, and I expect this to be another barn burner classic out of him. Number 2, now I just mentioned how Justin Gaethje has this awesome style and he always has these great fights, but Gaethje is planning on incorporating more wrestling going forward after his loss to Dustin Poirier. Yes, Gaethje has had some incredible stand-up wars, but after his loss to Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje appeared on the MMA Hour and told Ariel Helwani that it's probably a good idea that he incorporates more wrestling, and also keep his opponents guessing on what he's gonna do. If you know Justin Gaethje, if you've watched his fights, they're primarily stand-up wars, so him going to the ground, it might be that nice added element that he needs into his game to be a top level fighter, because right now he's kind of at that hump where he can't get over that top 5 threshold. I believe he's ranked at number 7. Maybe incorporating more wrestling will get him above that hump. However, that doesn't mean this fight is going to be bad, and I would still expect an incredible Gaethje fight out of this one. Just don't be too surprised if he ends up going for a couple of takedowns and alters his style a little bit, but I'm sure the essence of Justin Gaethje will always be omnipresent. Number 3, if you think this fight is all about respect and these two guys have respect for each other, well, I got bad news for you. There's actually some venom going into this fight. If you go back to the 25th anniversary press conference in LA, I think most people were concerned with what Nate Diaz was doing, what Dustin Poirier was doing. Maybe you were really into the back and forth between Tyron Woodley and Darren Till. Maybe you were so captivated by the announcement of Khabib versus McGregor at the end of that press conference. What you might have missed out on is the back and forth between Justin Gaethje and James Vick. They actually had some really clever lines, and it seems like there's a little bit of animosity. Might just be to build up the fight, but I can always appreciate a good back and forth. So maybe you're not the biggest fan of James Vick dropping the R-bomb, but I did think that exchange was quite good, and honestly, it just got me more excited for this fight. Who knows if it's real venom? Probably not, but good way to build up the fight. You have that platform at a press conference, and I think they did a good job utilizing it. So I've talked a lot about Justin Gaethje and how he's an incredible fighter, but let's talk about James Vick, because he is underrated as hell, and that's number 4. Vick is an underrated fighter, criminally underrated at that. I've seen some of the YouTube comments, and it's crazy how disparaging those comments are towards James Vick. People saying that he's only fought in cans, he hasn't beaten anyone. Yes, he hasn't beaten an absolute top fighter, but he hasn't gotten the opportunity to do so. Whatever opportunities he's had, he's done very, very well with them. After all, he has a 9-1 record in the UFC. Do you understand how ridiculous it is to have a 9-1 record? Sure, it's not the absolute elite competition, but let's look at some of the guys he beat. His UFC debut was against Ramsey in the Gym. He got a submission in 58 seconds. He went to Australia and defeated prospect Jake Matthews by submission in just around when Jake Matthews was the heavy favorite. He did have one blunder against Beneil Dariush. He lost by knockout in the first round at UFC 199, but everyone gets caught. I don't think that's a big deal, and since then, he's won 4 fights in a row, including wins over Abel Trujillo, Polo Reyes, Joseph Duffy. Joseph Duffy is a great fighter, and most recently against Francisco Trinaldo, he won that fight by unanimous decision. So he's been guys like Joe Duffy, Francisco Trinaldo, Jake Matthews in his home of subbed out Ramsey in the Gym in 58 seconds. He's had some very impressive performances, and he's delivered delivered when he's gone out. Also, he's like 6'3" tall, 6'4" tall, and he's fighting at 155 pounds. That's absolutely ridiculous. He might be the tallest guy in that weight class, and just his ability to use his length, use his reach, there is a lot of potential, and I can very well see James Vick as a top-level fighter. If he can get past this test against Justin Gaethje, I very well could see him get a big fight after that. And number 5, I just mentioned what could be after James Vick, so I want to talk about potentially what could come for the winner out of this fight. Now, there are a lot of options in the lightweight division, a lot of great fights being paired up. It looks like Kevin Lee will be fighting Anthony Pettis at UFC 229. That isn't confirmed, but they do seem to be on board with that fight, and I think having a 155-pound fight that isn't McGregor-Khabib on that card, just in case one of them fall out and they can fill in, that's a great idea to save that pay-per-view in case of a disaster. So what comes for the winner of Vick versus Gaethje? Well, I have an idea. How about the returning Tony Ferguson? Yes, if James Vick wins, who wouldn't want to see James Vick versus Tony Ferguson? That is a great fight. And if Justin Gaethje wins, maybe throwing him back into the fire against Tony Ferguson is a bit much, but he would have just beaten James Vick, a very good fighter. And you know, Tony Ferguson needs a top fight. Everyone else is booked, and all I could see for the winner of this fight is a fight against Tony Ferguson. Now, we would also have to wonder what comes for the loser. I think if Justin Gaethje loses, that really sets him back quite a bit, because that's 3 losses in a row. There's no way he's gonna be cut. I know James Vick said that in the press conference, that he was gonna beat Gaethje. That would be Gaethje's 3rd loss in a row, and he'd be sent back to the B-Leagues. Absolutely not. When you put on fights like Justin Gaethje does, you can lose 4 or 5 fights in a row, and you're still gonna be employed. But at the point of 3 consecutive losses, at that point, that is gonna set you back quite a bit, and that's probably gonna put you, you know, in the top 15. You're still gonna get a big name. You're probably gonna get put high on the card because of how Gaethje fights. That's if Gaethje loses. Now, Vick is streaking right now. He's got 4 wins in a row, so if he loses to Gaethje, doesn't put him back that much, but this is Vick's opportunity for that big fight that he's wanted. It's really paramount that he wins this, because if he doesn't, he could be back in position of getting those lesser names and not getting the big fights that he wants. So this is a huge opportunity for James Vick. It's a huge opportunity for Gaethje as well, because I think he really needs to win this fight if he wants to stay in that upper echelon, and I do think the winner of this fight will fight Tony Ferguson, and that's a massive fight. So that's going to conclude this video. While Gaethje versus Vick isn't the biggest fight in the world, it is the next fight that I'm looking forward to. It's on August 25th, and it's a fight that I think a lot of you guys should be looking forward to, because it's going to be very important to the lightweight division. In this video, I went over 5 things you need to know, and I think all of these points are very relevant heading into the fight. I always like to see what would come out of a fight, and I think for this one, I think it's a clear-cut option where the winner could fight Tony Ferguson if Kevin Lee and Anthony Pettis does get booked for 229. That's going to conclude this video. Sound off with your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.